Hello and welcome to another episode of a Wicked Parley. Oh man, tonight we're going to be talking about entertainment. We're going to be talking about all the things that people observe and watch, and potentially looking at some of the things that are somewhat objectionable, we'll say. I think the main focus we're going to jump into is we're going to be looking at whether or not entertainment is good for us. So we're going to be talking about everything from social media to movies to TV shows, streaming services, everything, even YouTube.
Lots of stuff.
Yeah, we're coming for you.
Practically everything.
Yeah, we're coming for you, YouTube. We're coming for you.
Yeah.
And hi, and welcome, host.
Yes.
Good to see you here. All right.
But yeah, we're gonna probably talk about whatever pops up into our heads.
Yeah, especially and even like
Fox News.
Yeah, even the news, like Fox News. So yeah, or print media, like newspapers. So. Mm-hmm. All right. Before we really jump into all that, I just kind of want to give you guys a little quick, heads up when it comes to some of the progress going on when it comes to the monthly challenge. Yeah. So, I've been doing the run thing, according to my Google Assistant, it tells me that the average time for a person to run a mile is between 9 and 16 minutes. I'm like 22 to 30 minutes. It's taking some time, and it's also quite painful. So, upon medical advice that I would say is kind of sort of helpful, I'm going to not be doing a full blast run moving forward. So, just heads up, guys.
Sounds good.
So I can't blow a knee out doing a challenge. It's not good. It's not good.
Not good at all.
No.
Not good at all.
Not good at all. So I'll still be doing the run thing, but I'm gonna have to modify it. How we're gonna modify it, not entirely sure, but we'll cover it in future episodes. And so with all that stuff out of the way, we're gonna jump into a couple of the definitions and stuff like that for the talking points today. And one of the first definitions we have isn't really even a definition at all. It's a phrase. It's called "keeping up with the Joneses." And the reason why I'm using a phrase here is because this is some of the things that are really... This is a talking point that's really important for one of the main issues that we're going to handle today. That issue primarily has to do with all the streaming services and constantly having to have every single little thing. So that way you're keeping up with all the latest TV shows and stuff. So, Rose, without further ado, can you go ahead and read through we'll say the phrase.
Mm-hmm. If you say that someone is keeping up with the Joneses, you mean that they are doing something in order to show that they have as much money as other people, rather than because they really want to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say this for this particular definition, why it's important, for me at least, is that I don't want to have to buy Disney Plus, Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max, all these other things. I would like one service that has everything, and I want it to not be $1 bajillion. So, I'm just going to throw that out there.
Don't we all?
Yeah, that's one of the things that's definitely...
It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. Yes, it is. All right, let's go to the next definition.
Yeah, sure. Seriously, keeping up with the Joneses, it just sounds like it's more trouble than it's worth, to be quite fair.
Yeah.
All right. So, the next one we've got, the main topic for today, entertainment. Which one am I reading?
I think it's probably A. 1A is probably the main one.
So, amusement or diversion provided especially by performers.
Yes. And performers can take the form of many things, from people who are journalists, broadcasting news, etc. It could also be someone who's on a TV show, or a movie, or even in-person theater or play. Mm-hmm. So all of these things can be different forms of entertainment, and entertainers, take many hats.
Oh yeah. What's your favorite?
Honestly, I think I like theater. Like live theater is probably my favorite. And I think it's just because it feels unpredictable. You don't really know exactly what's going to happen. You get the general gist, especially if it's a play you've seen before. Mm-hmm. But there's that spontaneous thing that kind of happens that's a little bit different, and they have to kind of run with it and kind of improv a little aspects to kind of make it complete. And I really find a lot of enjoyment from watching how those particular people leap past all those different situations.
Okay. My favorite are My favorite would be street performers, but not ones that are like music oriented.
Mm-hmm.
Like, stuff like street performers that do either like trapeze or they're like gymnastics. Or one of my favorites so far was this guy who was just on the street doing spray paint pictures.
Mm-hmm.
I have one.
Ah.
It was great.
How do you feel about people who gargle swords?
Congrats and great courage to you. Please be careful and have 911 on speed dial.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have to imagine those people don't have tonsils.
Like, I know you have to train to do that, but like that's still terrifying.
Yeah.
Ready for the next one?
Yeah.
So this one's going to be a major topic for today because pretty much everybody I know uses it.
Yes.
Social media.
Oh, yeah. The obvious.
Forms of electronic communication such as websites for social networking and microblogging through which users create online communities to share information, ideas, personal messages, and other content such as videos.
Yeah, this is going to take the form of, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, etc. Snapchat,
Twitter, Vine, TikTok.
Yeah, I mean the whole gamut.
So many apps.
I think when it comes to social media, one thing that people don't actually recognize is that's not just this, is that the fact that electronic communication is key. Because I've heard a lot of people say that newspapers are social media, that the news to some extent is social media. And I would say that yes, if they're communicating via blogs and things like that, but if it's a hard copy, of like a newspaper, no. I'm sorry, but print media does not count as social media. Because you don't have a way of communicating with the author. I think that's the critical thing that's involved with social media, is that it is the ability to convey a thought and respond to something that someone's putting else out there. If you want to communicate with a person, you have to write them, and there's this whole long, drawn-out process, and it's not actually seen by everyone. It's just something that you guys do, unless you choose to share it on social media.
Social media is also freaking quick.
Yeah, it can. That's dangerous, because I feel like social media is quick to get information, but slow to change. So so it's kind of like it's
quick responses and stuff, because you can just reply to someone real freaking quick.
Oh yes, for sure.
If you're on the thing, at least. Yeah.
Or you could be like me, and I don't have Facebook, so I just I'm a buffoon. I exist in this elsewhere space.
Yeah, the only one I really use would probably, besides the TikTok for posting the question of the days, and the Twitter also for those, I think I mostly use Facebook Messenger to keep in touch with my friends.
Okay, yeah, I would say that that's pretty cool. I mean, I think Discord is the only thing I actively use to communicate with people at this point.
Discord's a good one.
Yeah, but I think that's probably the limit of my use of social media. But that's not for the show.
Next one?
Yeah.
All right. Influencer. Oh boy.
Fuck these people. I mean, what a wonderful group of individuals.
Easy.
It's the top definition.
Yeah. One who exerts influence, a person who inspires or guides the actions of others.
Yeah, especially the guides the action of others part, That's pretty critical.
That's pretty darn important, because sometimes what they promote is sometimes utter nonsense.
Yeah, looking at all of you women out there with your booty shorts and just showing all pictures of your ass and all sorts of different poses and stuff like that.
I wasn't gonna go there, but all right.
No, but that's my privilege, and I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna exert that.
Oh my gosh.
That's we're tired of it. Sorry. Add to a meaningful conversation. I mean, there's only so many pictures of someone's ass that you really need to see. I mean, after the first after the first 4 or 5 shots, really, who's benefiting at that point? I mean, there was this person that literally had a picture of 108 different photos of their ass from different angles. How the person took the time to actually find out that these were different angles, I don't even know.
I'm imagining just moving it by a centimeter.
It's like, look at this from left
It's like
to
stop
right.
motion.
Oh no, you string them together. Oh, I see what happened.
Sorry, now I'm just. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I'm just imagining somebody like doing a stop motion like picture animation of like some like club dancing.
Oh dear God, no. That's a hard pass. Hard pass.
All right. Last one before the break.
Okay.
Demographic.
Oh yeah.
This one, right?
Yes.
The statistical characteristics of human populations, such as age or income, used especially to identify markets, which is something we're going to be using when we discuss the different types of entertainment, to be honest.
Yeah, really it's going to look at not, I think there's one extra thing that the definition doesn't do a good job at specifying is that it's not just age and income, but it's actually also broken up into gender as well. I think there's a big difference between the types of things that draw different people. I mean, I can think of like a lot of action movies today would be, I definitely a huge, we'll say a much larger demographic of individuals are probably male who are watching and enjoying those types of films, in comparison to their female people who are perhaps maybe interested in a different kind of film. It's possible. I'm not going to go into too much detail with this particular thing. It'd be too difficult to go over it, but. Yeah. That's the gist of one thing that I think is missing from this definition that we'll be sort of discussing.
Okay. All right. Now that we have all the definitions out of the way, time to let everybody digest it and go for a 2-minute break.
That's right. And you get to enjoy some more TikTok various questions. So hopefully enjoy. And if you have any questions about anything that's posted, whether it be definitions, whether it be TikTok things, feel free to message us in the comment section. If you are watching this, later in the future, and if you're here live, go ahead and ask a question. We'll respond to those. And also, if you guys haven't hit your notifications button, on your guys' thing for our videos, then please do that because that way you can, see whenever we do something cool. Because we might have a surprise in the coming a couple months for you guys at a random. So who knows?
Yep. See you guys.
All right. See you in a little bit. Okay, and we're back. Okay, hopefully that break wasn't too long. So the first talking point we're going to be jumping into tonight is going to be one that's kind of going to be looking at the different kinds of entertainment. And Rose, do you want to go ahead and read the first prompt we got?
Yeah, sure. So this is just a reiteration of just what the heck we're talking about today. So, when you mention entertainment, what types of entertainment are you mostly going to be talking about today?
Mostly, we're going to be talking about social media. We're going to be talking about the apps that comprise social media. We'll be taking a look at some movies. We'll be talking perhaps about a few TV shows here and there. We'll be taking a look at certain forms of print media, and as we kind of alluded to earlier. And we're going to be trying to take a look to see if one of these particular forms of media is more advantageous than the other, than the others, and to figure out which is the worst of them.
Just based on previous episodes, I have a feeling of which ones you consider not to be so great.
I think what I will say is actually going to surprise you.
Okay, I look forward to being surprised.
Okay, surprising, yes. All right, so where are we at with what's the first question?
Yeah. So you just covered which ones we're probably going to be focusing on and whatnot.
Yep.
So, of the ones you've listed, and probably out of those who haven't been listed, which one do you think is influencing people the most out of all forms right now? Which is kind of subjective depending on which area you live in, and that sort of thing. But if I'm talking most of California, just as a start, which one do you think influences people the most?
Okay, well, I would say influencing people is probably Facebook. And to be fair, I think Facebook, probably in most parts of the world, is probably the number one. I would think that the next most one that's probably pretty darn close to Facebook is probably YouTube. And only because of the impact YouTube has. But I still think that the way in which people consume information usually happens from like small, short bits of information that they hear or see. And Facebook does a really great job at kind of giving you the bullet points of today as this is what's important. And a lot of people don't really take the time to think about all those things, and they just kind of like read it and they take it as gospel. And so it's like, and it's like, okay, well, if that's the case,
people, do your research, please.
yeah, because there's a lot of misinformation that gets put out by Facebook's news affiliates, we'll say.
There's a reason for cross-referencing.
Yeah, I mean, and on Facebook, you know, like, you have these issues, but these issues exist in almost every form of social media, too. And so, like, the thing is that social media should not be a replacement for the standard news. And I don't mean Fox News. I mean reputable news sources, all right? And even the reputable ones can sometimes get shit wrong. And so, you know, if you come across something that sounds weird, fact check it, you know? I endorse very much the use of fact checking. Look up stuff. Don't just assume that whatever is told you is the truth. That's a mistake.
Nothing wrong with double checking that something is a fact. It's if anything, it's gonna be worse if you don't check it and you try to pass it off as fact when psych, nope.
Yeah.
That's always it's one of the worst situations for me.
Yeah, honestly, like being told something and you're like, oh, that must be true, and then you say it, and then like it turns out like you're in a setting where like let's say you're in a class setting and somebody, you know, you repeat something that you heard and you think it's true, and then the entire class goes, yeah, that's not true at all. And then now you look kind of stupid, and you're like, and now you have to hate the person who gave you that information. And so like you're like, damn you, Uncle Todd, how could you say that on Facebook? I believed you.
Oh goodness gracious.
This is how, you know, family feuding starts, you know? It begins with someone's stupid comment. So, you know, watch it.
Alright. So, there's been a surge of electronic types of media.
Uh-huh.
Lots of videos, lots of music, lots of, well, the social media.
Sure, yeah.
Bunch of things. And from what I remember hearing, so feel free to double check this.
Okay.
Or you can tell me whether or not like you're hearing the same thing.
Yeah,
but
fact check.
I've started to hear that physical media is starting to like have less sales in comparison.
Yeah, that's a real thing.
Okay.
So
So I'm not just blowing this out of my butt.
No, what the hell? Okay, so you can look at actually like into the market, and you can see kind of like how like bookstores are doing, and you can kind of like check your normal, you know, physical like normal places where you traditionally find your stuff, your physical forms of things. Borders is an excellent example of a bookstore that no longer exists. The small mom and pop shops are gone, which it really sucks. The vast majority, I don't mean they're all gone, but I mean like the vast majority of them are going away. They're getting, slower and slower foot traffic. There's less and less people wanting to come in and buy stuff. So it's just, they're definitely going away. I mean, I don't know if you guys, how many people actually walk into Barnes and Noble? And because I know Barnes and Noble is like, a bookstore, but it's also kind of like the, bookstore. It's like, it's like the devil bookstore. I'm a big fan of Barnes & Noble, and the only reason why I'm a big fan is because it's a physical bookstore. I can go in there and I can get my actual books. Amazon is doing its best to just destroy every single place that has physical media, and I personally dislike that. But I also noticed that Barnes & Noble started having toys and a lot of music and just a whole bunch of random things that don't make sense in a bookstore. It became like a toy store / it's like a toy store for adults and kids plus books, and it's like
they're just trying to keep up with times apparently.
Yeah, I know, but like
it's sad.
Yeah, it is sad, especially when you go in there and you're like, well, I can't find this book because they couldn't stock it because instead they had to have a Lego display. And it's like, I mean, I like Legos, but like I don't go to a Barnes & Noble going, you know what, I'm buying me some fucking Legos. Like that's not what's going on. I'm going to Barnes & Noble to buy a book or a manga, or like, actually I sometimes buy music there, but I'm adding to the problem.
Yeah, I miss being able to just walk to a bookstore. Now I have to just straight up, I mean, I drive anyway, but like I have to drive out quite a distance for any actual bookstore rather than having a bookstore within walking distance like I did in my high school.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I'm very, very fortunate. I live there's a Barnes & Noble, and then there's also a Half Price Books that are in reasonable distance from where I live, and they're practically next to each other. If you're looking at a map, you're like, wow, that one's like across the street. And you're like, wow, okay. So I'm very fortunate in that particular way, but I know that a lot of people don't have that, and I would definitely say that the sales for most bookstores is diminished greatly.
Yeah. So, obviously, for me, it's sad that this is happening.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is happening in the entertainment industry that's kind of pushing these changes and making it so that the bookstores have to adapt in this way in order to even stay close to relevant?
Well, I mean, I'm going to put it this way. I think social media does a pretty damn good job at making newspapers and other forms of news obsolete. I think that Amazon probably does a great job at basically making a lot of the stores obsolete. Because I mean, think about it like this: if you can flip on your phone and you can use an app to order, let's say
have it shipped to your house.
Yeah, any book you want, have it shipped to your house. It kind of, I mean, the only thing you have to worry about now is I have to get up and go and throw away the box instead of having to, put on clothes and drive to the location, shop around, and then find it.
That and package thieves.
Yeah, you got to worry about the thief ninjas, like the little anyways. But yeah, I would say that like that's probably what I think is going on. I think that there are other forms of we'll say consumerism that are edging out these things.
Kind of like the mentality of we want it now.
Yeah, I mean,
or we want it like either quick and efficient.
I think,
or it's just like convenience.
Western culture is moving very fast towards that. We want everything right now. We are not willing to wait at all. And so, I mean, like some people have touted it as the fast food world.
Oh my.
Where everything is the fast food analogy. You get everything: your clothes, your cars, people, even are all just really just fast. You don't want to wait. You don't want to do any of these things, and so. Yeah, it's kind of sad. I think social media, particularly influencers, on TikTok and on Instagram, who are promoting these crazy lavish lifestyles, are all leading towards those particular types of ideas. And so it's pushing consumerism in a direction where it's just going out of control. I mean, there's definitely the whole idea of the keeping up with the Joneses mentality of we're just going to keep on going and going and going. We're going to keep on getting, I see my friend's got this, so now I got to get this, or I got to get something that's better to one up him. And it's just like, no one's taking the time to really ask the question, do you really need this? I mean, like for me personally, I'm getting, I got a new phone recently. Well, I'm getting a new phone more specifically. It wasn't in the store that I went to, and so I had to order it. But I got a phone and I had to make a decision. Do I want to get a really fancy phone that'll last me a year or two, or do I want to get a really, really fancy phone that's going to last like 3 or 4 years? And I chose the really, really fancy phone because I'm like, I don't want to have to keep on coming in and buying a new phone every couple of years. I'd rather just get one phone that's good for a long time, and then after that, it's fine. So, yeah. So, I don't know. Like, to me, I think that, like, the idea behind the keeping up with the Joneses mentality is something that's pushed forward on places like Instagram, places like Facebook, and it just kind of it's eroding the main, I would say, the wholesomeness of social interactions.
That's fair to say. Sorry.
Yeah, someone's losing their shit over there.
Somebody's losing their mind over here. Nothing much I can do about that besides me myself.
Yeah.
So with the whole, our mentality is at least in Western culture, it's starting to move toward in this direction. What do you think it's gonna look like say in a year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Like, how bad do you think it's gonna be?
I honestly don't know. I mean, if we were going to take a look at the normal trends, right? We in 2008 we got introduced basically to the smartphone, and within a span of about 5 years, we went from not really having anything like this to becoming wholly dependent upon it, where everything in our lives intertwines with it. Now we get to a point where our phones are essentially connected to our wallets. All these things are interconnected. And then we also are getting our values from being able to have these conversations on, Twitter and Facebook and all these other things, where, people are, I mean, obviously Twitter is a giant war, right? Like every day it's a war.
Twitter is a straight up war zone at times.
Yeah. And, supposedly it's like super toxic. I try not to even look at it, so I don't really know all that much. So, there's that.
People can be really mean in 140 characters somehow.
Yeah. But I also think that, like, it's also making people, I would say, it's creating two different demographics of people, and I don't know which demographic is going to win out. You got the super sensitive, super, like, special snowflake type people, right?
Oh my lord. That
are, like, this offends me, and it could be, like, absolutely, like, not offensive, but to them it is, and then they make a huge stink about it, right? And then you get the other people who are like, I've seen this, I have a thick skin, it's kind of whatever, right? And so, like, that could be said that that's just human nature, that there's these types of people out there. But I think that things like Twitter, things like Facebook, expose you to these radical ideas, and I think it speeds along the transition to which one of these sides you end up being on. And so I think that whichever demographic is the one who wins will decide kind of how this will affect us in the future.
So it's kind of like there's more of a division and not really a middle ground?
Yeah, I think that if anything, we're going to see even more divide amongst people as these things continue to flesh out. Unless someone just, like, starts to put, like, a regulation on this that prevents certain things from being said, or does something which infringes on free speech, and so, like, that's a whole thing. And so I think very likely at some point a control lever needs to be placed on this stuff, because a lot of things get completely out of hand. And yeah,
it's kind of ridiculous. All right, moving on away from that and getting into more of a demographic based question.
Sure.
Again, most of our answers are going to be subjective, so feel free to argue in the comments.
Yeah, to say the least. Do we have any questions, by the way?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, then.
Let's move on, shall we?
All right.
So the next one is, if you had to kind of divide people into groups that prefer different types of entertainment, just based off of what you know, what groups would you say prefer what type of entertainment?
Okay. All right. This is where I'm gonna kind of like start probably get in trouble.
Uh-oh. Why?
Well, it's because...
I love the mug.
Oh, I know, right? Jurassic Park mug. You gotta love it.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's super
Rawr.
cool. Rawr. So I think that, like, the first demographic that kind of, like, is obvious is to break it up into the age, right?
Okay.
And so, like, different
Makes
different age groups are going to be attracted and like different things, all right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I think a younger demographic typically has a low attention span. So if something has a lot of depth, a lot of, like, it requires a lot of investment of your time to really understand and get involved in, a large portion of that particular group is not going to find that entertaining. You're always going to find outliers that are going to like those things, and so I'm not going to say everyone in that group, but I'm going to say a large portion, a significant portion is going to feel that way about those kinds of media. So it's going to focus their attentions onto specific things. This is where you get like the Snapchat, you know, kind of like people, all right? And I think that that's probably like your teenagers to young adults.
Okay.
And then you got like what I would say like is, I don't know, probably like young adult to, we'll say, middle age is probably going to use Facebook. It's going to probably use YouTube. It's probably going to engage in Twitter. As these particular things allow them the ability to interact with other people, which they may not have time for. You know, a lot of people in that particular age group are either students or they're working professionals or their family peoples. And so, you know, with all the obligations they may have, there is very, little time for them to be able to engage. And so those particular uses of social media in that particular way is probably going to get their attention. So these people are less likely to watch lots of movies, more likely to watch a TV show, more likely to participate with the vast majority of the, what I would say, mid-range, mid-investment content. And then I think then there's anyone who's basically older than, so about middle-aged to elderly probably is going to pretty much be using Facebook. Is probably going to be utilizing, the standard television and also movies as their main source of consumption. And I think that's because they have the ability to have the investment in there. And they also may have lived experience that certain topics will appeal to them, which don't appeal to someone who didn't have an experience that they could relate to. And so I think that in those particular ways, you get those different groups. Now, here's the thing. The overlap for all of them is enormous, though, when it comes to certain,
I bet.
certain apps. One of the greatest examples of this is Instagram, right? I'm fairly confident that every demographic utilizes Instagram, and they use it for completely different reasons. Younger people use Instagram as like a pseudo dating app slash I don't want to go too bad and say this, but I kind of think that it's almost like they advertise themselves on there for various reasons. While other people use it to kind of have middle-aged people use it to kind of show clout, kind of be like, oh, look at this new car I have, look at this wonderful lifestyle I have, and kind of create this fake idea about how they live their lives that maybe makes them feel a little better.
Only showing the good parts.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the dangers of something like that, which we can talk about in a little bit. And then obviously you got the older demographic who would use something like Instagram to probably just check in with their family, see kind of what their family has been up to, and I'm sure that several older people are kind of appalled at at all of the, we'll say, suggestive photos that exist there.
I'm imagining they're getting more and more pushed for using electronic media versus physical media too, with how much tech is being used today.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a big problem. If I'm being 1,000%, I think social media is a great thing. It's something that is a tool that should be endorsed. I think there should be some form of control and some oversight over it, because I definitely think there's some pretty crazy shit that they do right now that is not okay. I am not cool with those sites collecting information about what I like and then trying to send me ads that specifically target me. I think that's wrong, and I think that should be stopped.
Why is that?
Well, because I think that there are individuals that are too young to recognize the type of manipulation that takes, and so what could happen is that a person could be suckered into buying a whole bunch of things that they don't need, and just because it's advertised to them, and they don't have the experience to go, oh, wait a minute, I shouldn't buy that. And so it creates lots of little tiny, I would say, problems that on the surface seem subtle, but are really, really problematic. It's kind of like the gotcha problem of video games from about like 4 or 5 years ago, like what happened in the Netherlands.
Yeah, gotcha games. Oh god.
Yeah.
Those hidden little tiny gambling machines.
Yeah, pretty much. So that's my thought process on that.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
So, I've got another question about all that.
Sure.
So, I've mentioned that depending on where you live might affect what types of media you have access to, such as if you're in a place with bad internet, you're not gonna have the greatest of internet media.
Mm-hmm.
Or internet-based media.
The Ethiopian internet.
So, how much does your community or the area you live actually affect the type of entertainment you use? Like,
oh my
for
God.
a quick example, the social media China ban.
Yes. Okay, yeah, so obviously it's huge.
Firewall of China.
Yeah, I mean...
I actually have something for that.
You have an image for it? Alright, cool.
Yeah. A little while in China, and look, it's a little firewall.
The Great Firewall of China.
It's the Great Firewall of China.
Oh my lord. Dear lord.
Okay, I'm done.
Alright then.
Bye.
Okay. Well, alright. Yeah, okay, so yeah, China definitely has taken some big steps recently. Obviously, not recently, but like within, I think the last couple of years, they banned Facebook. They have their own, the Chinese equivalent of Facebook. But they also are doing a lot of things that really control and manipulate the types of things that can be even viewed and accessed via, on like any online site, whether it be an app like Instagram or something like that that's connected. Mm-hmm. I'm not even sure. I mean, I think they have to like do something funky with their phones in order to access some of that stuff.
Private VPNs in order to access any of these banned sites. They can't just use like internet that's connected directly to China.
Yeah. Okay.
So like Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and a bunch of other things, straight up banned. They have to have private VPNs to even get access to these.
Yeah, and I'm sure people probably use them all the time to do that anyways, because
yeah,
people circumnavigate authority all the time. It's what people do. So
if there's a rule, somebody somewhere in the world's gonna break it.
Yeah, I mean, back to the primary part of the question though is that yes, I think that like, what you have access to is going to affect, how you think about certain things. And so like in a place let's say you're in the United States and you're on the West or East Coast, chances are you're going to have a pretty solid internet connection. You're going to probably have access to a lot of information and it's going to be pretty quick. Okay. There are parts of the United States that are kind of in like the middle of nowhere, that are kind of more rural, that don't have good internet speed. And so the amount of information they can access is going to be slower than the rest of the country. And so the way in which they perceive things is going to, of course, take a little bit of time. And it's also going to affect the amount of media they can consume. So what ends up happening, I think, is that a lot of people get pigeonholed into one kind of group, and they just keep on going for the same thing. And so you kind of create these, like, more like echo chambers, we'll say, of the same types of ideology, and then people just kind of think that that's what everyone says, and then when they get exposed to ideas outside, they experience, of course, culture shock. So yeah, I think those are definitely some of the things that can happen. I definitely think that, like, especially for other parts of the world, let's take let's take a look outwards and look at like places like in Africa, places like in some parts of Asia. Depending upon who's in charge in those parts of the world, depends on what they have access to. So the people can literally, like the leaders can manipulate the types of media that they get access to, and it can subvert and change the entire message. So I think that like when people in the West say something and they do something, they promote some message out there, it's really important that they don't mess with, or they make it very clear that this is what was being said. So that way other places can't manipulate or twist the words to create something else. Because at the end of the day, if they can sensationalize something, then they probably are going to find a way to exploit it, and then they're going to make something that we probably don't want to have happen look even worse than it really is.
Thanks. No thanks. Propaganda pieces.
Yeah.
Goodness. We do have a comment. I'll let you go ahead and read it while I look at the next thing real quick.
All right.
Do.
Also, should we go on break?
Yeah, we can go ahead and let everybody have a little bit of a break. So, we're going to be back in about 2 minutes. See you in a bit.
All right, cool, and we're back. Yeah, so before the break, we had a question posted. Rose, would you be cool enough to read out the question?
Yeah, sure. It's not really necessarily a question, more of a comment.
Okay.
So, host says that targeted ads aren't necessarily bad. You're gonna get the same number of ads regardless. It's just that the targeted ones are more relevant. So, for them, for instance, they're tired of getting the same. How do you pronounce that? I've never seen that word.
Plaque
the second one.
Yeah, plaque psoriasis.
Yeah, that one. Plaque psoriasis ad.
Yeah.
I've never seen that second word.
Okay. Yeah. Here's what I'm gonna say. I understand where you're coming from, host. I personally hate ads. Period. Like, I think ads in general shouldn't be there. I mean, there's a lot of people out there who enjoy ads, who, you know, like, I would say it almost is the thing that they do. You know, I mean, like the Super Bowl, for instance. There's whole groups of people who watch the Super Bowl not for the game but for the ads. So
some of those ads are hilarious.
They are, but I also think that, like, that's something that should be able to be turned on and off. And here's the thing. I have heard of cases of individuals who had targeted ads, you know, like, that were going after them that was for something that they absolutely, like, did not want in any way, shape, or form. Although, to be fair, like, the example is kind of, like, hilarious, so I'm going to tell you. There was a person that I knew who was very much a religious individual. This was a person who was strong in their faith. And they would regularly get adult entertainment ads posted to...
My.
Yeah, and they had absolutely no connection to any of this stuff. I do genuinely believe them. And so, like, sometimes the targeted ads don't necessarily work. Now, I know that's a bit of an extreme example, but it just shows that, like, the system is not perfect. And the fact of the matter is that, I mean, in some ways, not only is it an invasion of your privacy, right? But, like, it's intrusive. It's something, it's an unwanted thing in most people's lives. And so I think that it's just, that's where I was coming from. So, but yeah. Okay, let's go ahead and jump into the next talking point.
Yeah. So, social influencers we've mentioned before.
I hate them.
How do people like celebrities, social influencers on media, yada yada yada? How do people with such large amounts of influence affect other people?
Well, many people are influenced by just simply seeing somebody that they find, attractive, and they like to imitate or copy what they see. So like when you get like a, fitness, person or someone who's maybe is an athlete, and they're saying, hey, try our body spray or our varying thing of whatever, right? It doesn't exactly help or promote the particular product if the person is buying the product just because they're like, oh, I just got it, I'm just having it. Instead, they're getting it because they're being kind of manipulated, they're kind of being tricked into it, because those ads are definitely have a psychological element that is playing to people's weaknesses. And so like to me personally, like I hate all of those particular like ideas, but it's rooted in humanity. I mean, even if there were not ads, that practice would still happen, because we are always trying to emulate what we think is good. I can't hear anything you're saying.
Or what we believe to be good, at least.
Yeah.
It's kind of ridiculous sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah, so obviously that's a little bit of your opinion about people mimicking these behaviors. Some of them I find absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's plenty of really problematic stuff we can kind of discuss. I mean, I would say Instagram is one of the bigger areas, and I think there's a huge section of YouTube that has to do with something called the manosphere, which I've briefly talked about several times on this channel, and I probably will talk about it in more depth, probably better in the future. But their whole talking point basically is about how women essentially are manipulating things and harming themselves and also harming other people's relationships. And the main tool that is utilized in this particular way is social media. It's things like Instagram, it's things like Snapchat, it's things like Twitter, it's things like OnlyFans. And these particular platforms create a false narrative that people buy into, and then it destroys and corrupts like their lives. And so it's something that to me I think is deeply problematic. And while there are many things on this particular show that we've talked about that is very subjective, I'm going to argue that this particular point may be the least subjective thing that we talk about all night, is how bad social influencers are for society in general, and the way in which we glorify those particular perspectives is deeply problematic. I mean, so many people get exploited for so many things, it's ridiculous. I mean, for God's sakes, I mean, can you imagine, there's the woman who is average looking, right? Who, because she's able to take a certain pose and take a series of like edits and stuff like that, makes herself look from like, maybe we'll call her a 5 or a 6 to like her look like an 8 or a 9, when it comes to attractive scale. She, has this whole twisted, warped idea about what she might even value herself when it comes to something like that, and has no real basis with reality. So it's like, to me, there are so many things that are problems with that like I could just go on and on and on. I mean, like, there's the lifestyle stuff we've touched on already, with the people who like are posing their infinity pools, like people who are, in these lavish mansions or driving these fancy cars or going to these elaborate dinners or crazy parties. And, they make it seem like this is their life, that this is every night, every day, this is what it looks like. And so it really warps and changes the way in which people actually observe, the real world. And so their expectations, are super high, and then they come across reality and it's like nowhere even close to their expectations. And they think, oh, I must have a problem. Something must be wrong because I'm not living this glorious lifestyle that I'm seeing everywhere on social media. So I must be doing something wrong.
Yeah, that's one of the things I don't really like. Expectations too high, and they're not for a lot of things, they're not reachable in a timely fashion. They take forever sometimes to actually reach if you can.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the biggest thing is that a lot of people don't show the effort it takes to get to achieving something. You know, like the thing that always annoys me. Okay, like I'm not a super like physically fit guy. All right, I'm trying my best to go to the gym, but I see these ads all the time where you do this workout challenge and you go from this fat fuck to this super ripped guy in like 30 days, and it's like that's bullshit for so many reasons. And you get these kinds of like ads all the time in all sorts of things, which is kind of plays into the other thing that we were talking about. But more importantly than anything else, it just shows like how much of a disconnect there is with reality in some people's minds.
That whole letting people know about the effort that goes into these things, that reminds me of a comment that one of my friends made beforehand.
Oh, yeah?
They mentioned it would be great for people's self-esteem for all these like Instagram shots, snap-worthy stories, da 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 da. How many photos they had to take to get to that one?
Well, I mean, that's probably a shit ton, to be honest. But here's the thing too: there's also Photoshop, which happens a lot. Okay.
Yep.
There is a whole bunch of like different setups that happen when it comes to these particular things. So like these, oops, I accidentally like looked wonderful today, so I'm gonna take this picture. Is like 3 or 4 hours of tugging, pulling, grinding, and dyeing to get like the exact hairstyle that they want. And it's just like so many people out there are so fake, and they post these fake, crazy lifestyles, and I think it really is warping the idea, the normalcy, if that makes any sense, of what typical life is. And so people have these outrageous expectations. And like, I used to think that like expectations of like, oh, I'm just going to work this crazy job and I'm going to get this house, I'm going to get this like car, and it's going to be fine. Like, I used to think, okay, that was like my crazy idea, right? And I didn't know the steps that go in between all those things to get to that point. But now it's like, some people are like, I'm just going to go get a boob job and an ass job, and I'm going to do all these sorts of crazy like surgeries, and I'm going to go like this, and then I'm going to become a super like, we'll say influencer, and I'm going to make all this money, and I'm going to do all sorts of things. And while some people can do that, if you're a woman, you can't really do that if you're a guy. And there's a whole bunch of other things that just, I don't know, there's probably really upset about this. If I'm being 1,000%, I'm a little upset about this.
I've got a couple of comments that I'm curious on your opinion for.
Sure, let's take a look through them.
Yeah. So give me one moment here. So Kyle mentioned quite a bit before.
Okay.
That they believe that celebrities could potentially fulfill the role of a role model in a person's life, which they later added was, it's kind of overall kind of sad because people need role models to help with their development, but this plus social media and a bunch of other things like the editing jobs can make it really easy for celebrities to exploit people. Okay. And that's what makes it kind of sad.
I mean, I would agree with the exploit and the sad part. I don't think that, all right. I don't think that celebrities are very often role models. What I think that they are is they're like templates that people like to build personalities off of. Like in my life, I've seen lots of people, okay? And the main thing I'd say about all the people I've interacted with is that people are wearing a series of hats. And the way in which these hats get created is they see something that is captivating, that's interesting, something they identify with, and then they use it to mold themselves a temporary personality, we'll say. And they use that particular thing as, this is who I am until I find out who I really am. Or they switch between a series of hats for each situation. And I think that like when someone does something in a movie or a TV show or something like that, social media, a person might see that and might build a hat around that idea. But I don't think that the idea of building a hat that way is necessarily a role model, but more like a placeholder or like a pin in a critical stage of development that has to do with finding oneself. It's not about like a role model in that sense, because a role model is a series of things. It's not just emulating someone. It's having character. It's, learning true values and learning how to, intertwine those particular values and roles in your own life. and I don't see a movie star doing anything being able to do those things. So at least that's my particular thing when it comes to that. But I do definitely agree that people do need role models. People who attempt to get role models from movies are probably sad, and exploitation is probably extremely high, particularly with people who are wealthy and can afford to buy a lot of the merchandise that's being sold.
Oh boy.
What's up, boy?
No. Host, no. Oh boy. So you've mentioned a couple of things. I'm moving away from that real quick.
All right.
I like it too much. Anyway, so you've mentioned how some of the actions that influencers do can negatively affect people because it's expectations too high. It leads to a break in reality once they actually hit it.
That's my thoughts, at least. I mean, that's at least my opinions when it comes to it.
Yeah. So, on the opposite side of that, what do you think they do, and what do you believe they do that could influence people more positively?
Well, I think that sometimes when you see a celebrity do something nice for a community, that can be kind of pretty inspiring. I mean, LeBron James, all the charities that he does, and the ways in which he helps out a whole bunch of like foster youths and various things like that, I think is quite inspiring and something that a lot of people, could look up to and go, okay, that's something that's a character that I could emulate and I could learn something from. I think that whenever you ever see like any of the celebrities truly interact with actual like charitable donations and actual charitable societies and actually physically go to certain things and actually help people, those are all I would say spots of hope and happiness for humanity.
That reminds me of one YouTuber, Mr. Beast.
Oh yeah,
he's definitely
yeah, Mr. Beast is an excellent example of someone who does something like that.
I've watched some of his videos. They are absolutely ridiculous. Anyway.
Yeah. And so, like, to me, I think that those are particularly, like, the kinds of things that I think are positive. I think that whenever a celebrity tries to sell you something, whenever they try to do something that's supposed to, I would say, cause you harm or detract from your life, those are examples of bad things. And I think the problem is that most of the things that celebrities do either are selfish and have nothing to do with anyone else, or they have the byproduct of producing negative results. Very rarely do celebrities do things that are positive. And I mean, and sometimes those same celebrities that do horrible things do nice things only because they did horrible things. And so it's like, yeah, you did something shitty, and so you did something nice to make up for it. I don't think it works that way, and it shouldn't. And yet they kind of think it does, and so, like, that's kind of one of the problems, I think.
Yeah, the celebrities that do nice things, it just like reminds me that humanity is actually okay at some points.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good people out there. Like, I've said this before. I think the vast majority of people in this world are good people. I don't really think the majority of people are bad people, because if they were, war would be just so much more brutal and so much more prevalent throughout the world. While there are lots of wars out there, they're not like...
It's not as bad as it could be.
Yes.
Don't get me started on the weaponry.
Yes. Well, let's not talk
it's
about
terrifying.
Brutalism and...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright. So, last thing, real quick.
Okay.
I don't know actually how quick it'll be. Never mind on that.
No, just go for it. Just go for it.
Yeah. So, because people are so influenced by these celebrities and social influencers, and it's so easy for them to gain access to misinformation and whatnot, and to toxic communities, non-toxic communities, blah da 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 da. What are some potential results for society because of these actions? Like, what are some of the positives that could happen in the future? What are some of the negatives that could happen in the future?
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna go with this. I'm gonna say that
I kind of threw a hard one at you. I'm sorry.
It's not really a hard one. It's more like it's complicated. Not difficult, but just complicated. I think that the issue is going to boil down to the future is going to be held ultimately by the group that wins a confrontation. That's ultimately going to happen. I mean, as you can tell from media, we constantly are being forced into a divide. You're on one side or the other. And then there's like this idea of varying levels of which side you're on, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there used to be this notion that you had a set of beliefs and you got a position in life, and sure, you can disagree, but at the end of the day, you can always find common ground. And in today's world, specifically in the media, we're constantly being forced into this person's right or this person's wrong. There is no middle ground. We absolutely must have this particular thing.
Hate it.
And yeah, I hate it too. And I think that like that is going to probably be taken to the absolute extreme.
Mm-hmm.
And
if it's not kept in check right now, at
least.
Yeah,
this is why I said like there needs to be something done to social media to be able to kind of cap it, because of what they're doing is kind of outrageous. Because while they're trying to be like, hey, we have free speech and we're allowing all these things, well, what's really going on is that you're allowing essentially bigotry to be openly stated on your platforms. And you're allowing manipulation of very, very impressionable minds at a very early age, and then they become adults who are not ready for the real world. And so, like, to me, I feel like what likely will happen is that you'll have people who fall on either sides of these extremes, and it's going to come to a boiling point, which I feel like I'm worried it'll come into a confrontation. I hope it doesn't become a confrontation, but I feel like in the history of people, more often than not, when two different sides have strong opinions, it usually comes into a fight. And so, like, that's typically kind of like what happens. And so, like, that's what I'm afraid of. I also kind of think that, like, technology could also be the way out, of this whole situation as well. I mean, technology created the problem. Technology might be the answer to solving the problem. And that is by finding some sort of way of homogenizing the way in which we utilize our media in a way that creates less adversarial positions and allows for a more free, open discourse, which, I think is possible. I think right now it seems unrealistic, but say that to people who said, hey, you're going to go to the moon, when you couldn't even fly. So, I mean, more impossible things have been said and done than that. So I know there's a few questions that we got to, and I want to make sure we get to those before we end tonight.
Yeah. Give me a moment. So last comments for now.
Okay.
Kyle states that I think the vast majority of people are neutral, very few are good, and quite a few are evil. Do you want me to read the other one first, or do you want to respond to that?
I'm going to comment to that.
Okay.
I respectfully disagree. And I respectfully disagree on the grounds that truly evil individuals will manipulate and control and do anything to get ahead in this world. And if you look at the vast majority of people, you could say that there's a lot of people who are super, super wealthy that probably fit that bill, but they comprise 1% of the world population. So, I mean, like, and if you were to take that number and extrapolate that across the globe and over the long haul, I think that you'd find very few people who are truly, truly evil people. I also think that neutrality actually kind of doesn't exist either, if I'm being 1,000%. I think there are varying levels of good and bad. I think there's a lot of gray, and I don't think neutrality is gray. I just think that, like, everybody and every time that someone's presented with a choice, okay, you don't get the neutral choice. You do one thing or the other. And so, like, I think more often than not, people do typically something that is considered to be good because they have other people around them that's going to influence their decision making. So even if a person instinctively wants to do something that's probably selfish, if they're in a group of people or they have the potential to be observed by other people or their actions will affect other people, then they're more than likely going to do the thing that's going to be good for the whole group. And so even if it's through subtle manipulation, I do think that most people ultimately are good because they conduct themselves in a way that generates positive ideas and expressions. And so that's the reason why I kind of take that sense. But I can understand that particular viewpoint. I don't agree with it, and I think that if you look around the world, you can kind of see the evidence for that. I'm not saying that evil doesn't exist. I'm just saying it's not the majority or even half. It's a very small minority. So.
Alrighty. Next comment?
Yeah. Next comment.
All right. Let's see. Oh. So, host? Oh boy. Sorry, I read the preview and I'm like, oh dear.
Yeah.
The enemy is better off alive so they can be exploited later for greater profit. Holy crackle.
Okay. Not sure where you're going with that, host, but okay.
I've read way too many fan fictions for that to be even remotely a good thing.
Yeah.
Ay, ay, ay. And then the last comment, also by host, top title. Two men yeeted to the moon with the computing power of an iPhone.
Actually, the computing power of a calculator.
What?
Yeah, it was a calculator.
Oh my lord. What?
I mean, it was a calculator essentially strapped to a radio. That's about the gist of it.
Oh, what?
I'm not even kidding. Like, that's like really what it was, with a really powerful receiver and antenna. Like, that's just it.
Consider my mind blown. What the hell?
I mean, like, you should... You know, one of these days, I'm going to actually show you, like, all the stuff.
Sure.
Like, it will blow you away. You'll be able to appreciate it. It's pretty great. And who knows, maybe I'll even share with you guys if you guys care. But if you guys don't care, then okay. So I just want to say that tonight's episode kind of was all over the place. It's something that we're probably going to discuss again in the future. Entertainment is one of those things that's kind of like a hot button topic, and there's a whole bunch of different things that can be handled. So if there's something specific that you guys thought, hey, we didn't do a good job at expressing, or you feel like you'd like to hear more about, send us an email. Not in 2 weeks, I think, from now. I think it's two. Sorry, no,
About
not
2 weeks.
What, 2 weeks from now for what? Listen, which one are you thinking?
What?
Which one are you thinking? Tell me what you're thinking first. Anyways, there's going to be another Q&A where you guys get to ask us questions you want to hear us say. Okay, in about 2 weeks, roughly speaking.
That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the other thing. So, if you guys have questions, send us in. If you know our other, informations, then go ahead and send it that way. But I'd prefer people send it into the email, all your questions. Please do that. If you want to send it on Twitter or Instagram, then go for it. But we prefer email. And send as many questions as you like. All right. I would prefer you guys send in like 3 or 4 questions at least, if you guys are going to send in questions at all, because we're going to pick from a whole bunch and we're going to throw on a wheel, kind of like I normally see during our normal inquiries episodes. But it's been a long time since we actually had one of these, and so I feel like ideally episode 50 will be one of those episodes. So yeah, so let's look forward to that, and hopefully you guys will participate and send us some fun stuff. With that being said, we do, of course, have the personalities live stream, which is going to be Saturday. So if you guys are looking forward to us talking about personalities, bring your questions.
We're going to have a mini game.
Yeah, there's going to be a mini game, and you guys can participate. So look at that. But yeah, so that's tonight's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you all in the next one. Good night, everybody.